Brittany had always been a light sleeper. The faintest creak of the floorboards or the softest rustle of leaves outside her window would jolt her awake. It was both a blessing and a curse, especially now that she was living alone in her small, dimly lit flat on the outskirts of the university campus. The flat was old, with peeling wallpaper and a persistent draft that slithered through the cracks in the windows. It wasn't much, but it was hers. A sanctuary away from the chaos of dorm life, or so she thought. It started with the sounds. At first, Brittany dismissed them as the usual noises of an old building settling at night. The faint tapping on the window, the soft scraping against the walls, the occasional creak of the stairs leading up to her second-floor flat. But as the days turned into weeks, the sounds grew louder, more deliberate. They seemed to follow her, echoing in the silence whenever she was alone. She tried to convince herself it was her imagination, but deep down, she knew something was wrong. One night, as she lay in bed, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She reached for it, her heart skipping a beat when she saw the notification, a message from an unknown number. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. "I like the way you brush your hair at night. So careful, so graceful. Do you know I'm watching?" Brittany's breath hitched. She dropped the phone as if it had burned her, her mind racing. Who could have sent this? How could they know? She glanced around her room, her eyes darting to the shadows in the corners. The air felt heavier, colder, as if someone else was in the room with her. She grabbed her phone again, her fingers fumbling as she blocked the number and turned off her notifications. But the damage was done. Sleep didn't come that night. The next morning, Brittany tried to shake off the unease. She told herself it was just a prank, some idiot trying to scare her. But as she walked to her morning lecture, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. The back of her neck prickled, and she kept glancing over her shoulder, half expecting to see someone following her. The campus was bustling with students, but the noise and chatter did little to calm her nerves. That evening, as she unlocked her flat door, she noticed something strange. The door was slightly ajar, the lock scratched and dented. Her heart pounded as she pushed it open, her hand trembling on the doorknob. The flat was dark, the only light coming from the street lamp outside. She flicked on the switch, her breath catching in her throat. The place had been ransacked. Drawers were pulled open, their contents spilled onto the floor. Her books were scattered, her clothes strewn across the bed. But what terrified her the most was the message scrawled on the mirror in red lipstick. "I was here, you weren't home, next time I'll wait." Brittany stumbled back, her legs giving way as she collapsed onto the floor. She clutched her chest, her breaths coming in shallow gasps. Someone had been in her flat. Someone had touched her things, stood in her space, invaded her life. She felt violated, exposed, as if the walls of her sanctuary had been torn down. She called the police, her voice shaking as she explained what had happened. They arrived quickly, taking her statement and dusting for fingerprints. But they found nothing. No evidence, no leads, just a broken lock and a message on the mirror. They told her to be careful, to lock her doors and windows, to stay vigilant. But Brittany already knew that. She had never felt more vulnerable in her life. The days that followed were a blur of fear and paranoia. Brittany installed extra locks on her doors and windows, bought 2 security cameras, and kept a knife under her pillow. She jumped at every sound, every shadow, every knock on the door, but the stalker was always one step ahead. One night, as she sat at her desk studying, her phone buzzed again. Another message from an unknown number. "You look beautiful when you're scared. I can see you right now." Brittany's blood ran cold. She glanced at the security camera feeds on her laptop. The screen showed her flat, empty, and still. But then she noticed something, a faint movement. She zoomed in, her heart pounding as she realized what it was. A pair of eyes staring directly into the camera. She screamed, slamming the laptop shut. Her hands shook as she grabbed her phone and dialed the police. But before she could speak, she heard it, the sound of footsteps outside her door. Slow, deliberate, coming closer. She froze, her breath caught in her throat. The footsteps stopped, and for a moment, there was silence. Then the doorknob began to turn. Brittany's mind raced. She grabbed the knife from under her pillow and backed into the corner of the room, her eyes fixed on the door. The knob turned again, more forcefully this time, and the door creaked open. A figure stepped inside, silhouetted against the dim light from the hallway. It was him. Brittany's scream tore through the silence as she lunged forward, slashing wildly with the knife. The figure dodged, grabbing her wrist and twisting it until the knife clattered to the floor. She struggled, kicking and screaming, but he was too strong. He pinned her against the wall, his breath hot on her face. "Quiet," he whispered, his voice low and calm. "I'm not gonna hurt you, not yet." Brittany's vision blurred as tears streamed down her face. She could feel his grip tightening, his other hand reaching for something in his pocket. She closed her eyes, praying for it to be over, for someone to save her. But no one came. And then, just as suddenly as he had appeared, he was gone. Brittany collapsed to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. She didn't know how long she sat there, her body trembling, her mind numb. But when she finally looked up, she saw it, a single red rose lying on her bed, a note attached. "Until next time, Brittany." Brittany's breath came in ragged gasps as she stared at the rose, its crimson petals a stark contrast against the pale sheets of her bed. The note, written in the same meticulous handwriting as the message on the mirror, sent a fresh wave of terror coursing through her veins. She couldn't stay here. Not anymore. The flat, once her sanctuary, now felt like a prison, a trap designed to suffocate her. With trembling hands, she grabbed her phone and dialed her best friend, Mia. The phone rang twice before Mia's groggy voice answered. "Britt, it's 2 a.m. What's wrong?" "He was here," Brittany choked out, her voice breaking. "He was in my flat. He touched me, Mia. He left a rose. I can't stay here. Please, I need you." Mia was wide awake now. "I'm coming. Pack a bag. You're staying with me tonight." Brittany didn't need to be told twice. She threw clothes, her laptop, and a few essentials into a duffel bag, her movements frantic. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the wind outside made her freeze, her heart pounding in her chest. She kept glancing at the door, half expecting him to burst through it again. By the time Mia arrived, Brittany was a trembling mess. Mia took one look at her and pulled her into a tight hug. "We're gonna figure this out," she said firmly. "You're not alone in this." At Mia's apartment, Brittany finally felt a semblance of safety, but sleep still eluded her. She lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying the night's events in her mind. Who was he? Why was he doing this? And how did he know so much about her? The next morning, Mia insisted they go to the police again. This time, Brittany brought the rose and the note. The officers took her more seriously now, but their options were limited. Without a name or a face, there was little they could do. Desperate for answers, Brittany decided to take matters into her own hands. She began piecing together every detail she could remember, the messages, the break-in, the way he moved, the things he said. She scoured social media, looking for any clues, any connections. And then she found something. A photo from a university event months ago. In the background, barely visible, was a man staring directly at the camera, at her. His face was partially obscured, but there was something familiar about his eyes. The same eyes she had seen on the security camera feed. Brittany's stomach churned as she zoomed in on the photo. She didn't recognize him, but she knew someone who might. She sent the photo to her professor, Dr. Langston, who had been at the event. His response came quickly. "That's Ethan Grayson. He was a student here a few years ago, dropped out under questionable circumstances. Why do you ask?" Brittany's hands shook as she typed her reply. "I think he's been stalking me." Dr. Langston's next message was a bombshell. Ethan was obsessed with a student back then, too. Her name was Claire. She disappeared. The police suspected foul play, but they never found enough evidence to charge him. Brittany's blood ran cold. Claire. The name echoed in her mind, a ghost from the past. She began digging deeper, uncovering news articles about Claire's disappearance. The similarities were chilling. The messages, the break-ins, the rows. Ethan had done this before, and now he had chosen her. But why? What connected her to Claire? Brittany's mind raced as she searched for answers, and then she found it. A photo of Claire, smiling brightly, her arm around a younger version of Brittany's mother. They had been friends, close friends. Brittany's heart sank as the pieces fell into place. This wasn't random. Ethan hadn't chosen her by chance. He had been watching her for years, waiting for the right moment to strike. And now, he was closing in. Determined to end the nightmare, Brittany decided to confront him. With Mia's help, she set a trap. They leaked false information about her whereabouts, luring Ethan to an abandoned building on the edge of town. The police were waiting, hidden, ready to arrest him. But Ethan was smarter than they thought. He didn't take the bait. Instead, he sent Brittany one final message. "You can't escape me, Brittany. I'm part of you now, just like I was part of Claire." The message sent a shiver down her spine. She realized then that this wasn't just about her or Claire. It was about control, about power, and Ethan wasn't going to stop until he had both. Brittany knew what she had to do. She couldn't run anymore. She had to face him to end this once and for all. With Mia by her side and the police on standby, she prepared for the final confrontation. But as she stood in the dimly lit building, waiting for Ethan to appear, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking into a trap. The air was thick with tension, every sound amplified in the silence. And then she heard it, the soft, deliberate footsteps echoing through the empty halls. He was here. Brittany's heart pounded as she gripped the pepper spray in her hand. She could feel Mia's presence beside her, a silent reassurance. But as the footsteps grew closer, she realized something was wrong. The footsteps weren't coming from the direction they expected. And then the lights went out. In the darkness, Brittany's fear became a living, breathing entity, suffocating her as she struggled to outwit a predator who seemed to know her every move before she made it. The game of cat and mouse had reached its end, and only one of them would walk away. If you enjoyed this spine-chilling story, don't forget to subscribe for more thrilling tales that will keep you on the edge of your seat. And always remember that sometimes the darkest shadows are closer than they appear. Stay safe, stay aware, and keep your doors locked, because you never know who might be watching. Until next time, sleep with one eye open